What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the neighborhood, and thanks for spending part of your day with us today. This episode is something we call the Neighborhood Watch. Welcome to the podcast where two longtime friends and sometimes a guest talk about their favorite games from the perspective of an average player. My name is Andrew Kimball.
And I'm Dylan Wren, and we are your friendly neighborhood gamers.
If this is your first time listening, first of all, thank you for checking out the podcast. The Neighborhood Watch is an episode format we do once a month where we can talk about all the games we're playing that probably won't get their own dedicated deep dive, but we still wanted to give them some time in the spotlight. Dylan, how's it going?
Can't complain. Still recovering. I've been very busy the past week and a half, 2 weeks, so I have not had as much time to play video games these past couple weeks as I would like to, but
I know what you mean.
Yep. For very different reasons, I would assume. But
yeah, I had a second job interview today, so That's kind of where I'm at in my life. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if all that schooling is hopefully going to pay off soon.
Yep. Fingers crossed.
That'll be done in a few weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Early December.
Your final project should all be getting ready to be done. So.
Yep. It's just checking boxes at this point, wrapping it all up. So
nice.
Yeah, thank God. So the nominees for the Game Awards were recently announced. Early this week on Monday, I think.
Yeah, I think it was this Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like we can kind of dive into that a little bit as our opening topic, opening question, maybe look at some of the more high profile categories and share our thoughts and opinions, because that's what podcasts are for.
Yep.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode and dive into what we've been playing. So you want to start at the biggest category, or do you want to kind of start from the back and work our way up to it?
I feel like biggest category first, right? Game of the Year, I feel like is going to shape kind of a lot of the rest of them, because it's industry people voting on this. So I guess the general thought is they give a game of the year. They may not, they may give other games some of these other categories, Yeah,
give it a nod because it's
not going to get game of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to read off the nominees?
Sure. So the nominees for Game of the Year, Jeff Keighley's Game Awards Game of the Year, is Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So all games, I feel like, well, I don't know that people were expecting Alan Wake to end up there, and Baldur's Gate did kind of come out of left field, but I think at the beginning of the year, people were expecting Tears of the Kingdom to be there, Spider-Man 2 to be there, maybe Resident Evil.
Were people expecting Resident Evil?
I mean, everybody in the industry loves Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, and they've been generally pleased with the remakes, I feel like. The third one didn't get the highest ratings, but also the third game was not everyone's favorite. People like 2 and 4 for the most part, I feel like. So,
yeah, and I mean, it's not the same as just a new coat of paint remaster type of game. So I get it, but it's there's no Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah.
There's no Armored Core.
Yeah.
There's no,
Starfield.
Those two jumped out at me. Starfield. Yeah. Starfield didn't make the cut.
We weren't big fans in particular, but there were people in the industry that were fans, and there are a lot of people that do like that game, I guess. So,
yeah. So I guess original games versus remakes, but I do appreciate the Resident Evil remakes for being unique as a remake. They changed some things. They reworked how the game plays fundamentally, so it isn't just the RE4 remaster up there getting the nod.
Yeah, it is interesting to me that Dead Space Remake is not on the list as another well-loved game. I don't know if it's maybe just because Resident Evil 4 is an older game, so the jump from like RE4 on the like GameCube era to RE4 now is a bigger jump.
Well, I think the Resident Evil name just carries so much more weight behind it than Dead Space. Like, people really like Dead Space, but Resident Evil is like one of those kind of OG video game franchises.
Yeah.
It's crazy though, because we could make an entire second list of games that would have made it probably to Game of the Year nominations in any other year. Like last year, for sure I could have seen like Starfield, Armored Core, Dead Space, and all those
Lies
being
of P.
potential. Yeah, Lies of P, that one too. I forgot about that one.
So yeah, this has been a fairly crazy year for games. So the only one that's on here that I'm a little surprised by, and I'm not like, I guess 100% surprised by it, because the industry does love its 3D, like 2D platforming Mario games, but don't get me wrong, I'm sure this Mario game does something different than other 2D platforming Mario games, but does it do enough to be on the list over some of these other games that we're talking about? I don't know.
Well, we'll talk about that later, because that's one of the games I'm going to bring up in our what we've been playing.
Yeah, because it
is an interesting one. The other thing that I thought about is usually Game of the Year one spot is given to like a smaller like indie game. I know everybody's gonna, well, not everybody, but people that are in deep with this stuff and follow it like we do, they're gonna be like, well, Baldur's Gate 3 is an indie game. Yeah, sure. But when I say a small indie game, I'm talking about your Celeste or your Hades or something like that. There's it doesn't usually win. I don't think it's ever won, but there's usually one up there that's like, oh, this is kind of like that smaller, that more pixely kind of game that's up there. And there's no room for that this year. They're absolutely, I mean, we're talking about, there's how many other AAA games that could be on this list that aren't.
Yeah.
It is interesting that Nintendo managed to get 2 on there though.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. So, which, if you had to pick, like if you were going to bet which one was going to win, what's your bet right now?
I'm going to go Tears of the Kingdom. I think it's between that and Baldur's Gate, and I think there's a lot of vocal people in like podcasting and stuff that are saying Baldur's Gate is going to win. And I like, if that is the case, I would not be surprised, but I think it's had a longer tail / it's weird to call it recency bias, but I think people are still actively playing it because it's such a big game, whereas they've all kind of moved on from Tears of the Kingdom. But I think being forced to vote and go back and think about earlier in the year, how special Tears of the Kingdom was, I think people are going to be like, oh yeah, that was really incredible what that game did, and that we were playing it on a Switch and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's between those two. I don't think any of the other games stand a chance, honestly. And I think it's nice to see them there. But if I were betting, I would go Tears of the Kingdom, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if it ends up being Baldur's Gate. What about you?
That's my thoughts exactly. I think it's really down to those two. I'd love to see, Alan Wake or Marvel Spider-Man get a nod, come away with Game of the Year, but I feel like those are games that are probably going to get the W in a separate category as like the consolation.
Art direction or adventure game or something like that, action game. Yeah.
I do think it comes down to Baldur's Gate 3 and Tears of the Kingdom. Like Baldur's Gate 3, from everything that I've heard, because Xbox released again today. Hey, on track for December, but they still won't.
There's no way.
Well, that's what they've said. They said December. My guess right now is that it's going to be like Game Awards night. It's an announcement at the Game Awards. That's like, go play it now on Xbox. That's my guess. Maybe, fingers crossed, on Game Pass. But
yeah, okay.
But we'll see. I mean, so, but like that game, everything that I've heard is like praising it for just like putting in things that 90% of its players won't see because you have to do something like specific. And I hear the same thing about like Tears of the Kingdom, or really Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where it's just like, hey, did you happen to climb this mountain and go into this one random cave? There's like something in there. There's a cool sword, or there's a, so I can see both of them taking it away. I do think Tears of the Kingdom might get just the like edge it out because it's a Nintendo property, and the industry likes them some Nintendo. So we'll see.
Yeah, the only thing I see working against it, aside from the fact that it came out in like
March,
earlier the year or whatever, it was like March, is just it being a sequel. People have that mentality of like, oh well, it is kind of just a sequel, whereas Baldur's Gate 3, it's also a sequel, but a sequel to a game that came out like how many years ago?
Yeah,
and so it's
like the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, it's basically like a brand new game. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how this one plays out.
Yeah.
Definitely hop in our Discord. We'll have our Game Awards channel that has been sitting there idle all year long, waiting for the showcases and stuff.
Yeah.
So the next category I pulled up to maybe talk about a little bit is Best Game Direction.
Okay.
Which is all the same games minus
Resident Evil.
Resident Evil. Yeah, it's missing Resident Evil. So, there's a consolation category right there.
Yeah. Honestly, though, I don't think the Nintendo games are the game direction games. I feel like this category is like Baldur's Gate 3 and Alan Wake. I feel like those are the two that comes out once a year. Well, twice. Sometimes we chat about random E3 stuff in there.
Yeah,
or in this,
I could see that.
Like, are the top runners in this category for me. If people are not voting Baldur's Gate in the game of the year, I feel like they vote it here.
Yeah.
But who knows? Like, Alan Wake has a very unique way of doing its stuff.
Direction.
Yeah. So, I mean, Remedy themselves have been doing like very unique stuff just in the game space for a while. Like the original Alan Wake was one of the first like episodic games, I think, that wasn't like a Telltale game. And then they did the whole Quantum Break thing. And then they like Control, and then tying everything into Control. So they've been doing some cool stuff. So I could see it being Alan Wake here, but maybe Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, I could see that too. The next category that I pulled to look at was Best Narrative, which is where we finally see Cyberpunk getting a nod.
Which is a little weird to me because it's DLC, right? Like it's DLC, but also not. Like, I'm a little unclear.
It's specifically the DLC that they're mentioning here is Phantom Liberty. So the games in this category are Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Final Fantasy 16, and Spider-Man 2, which that's a tough category.
Yeah.
I mean, that's tight. I mean, it is interesting seeing DLC there.
I've kept myself in the dark about the story of Phantom Liberty, other than just seeing that people loved the story. So,
yeah, I've heard it's like a really cool spy thriller kind of thing with Idris Elba. I just this afternoon booted up my original save because I'm just going to go dive right in. I had started a new game and was like, oh, I want to kind of see female V's point of view and, get reacquainted with the game.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's like 50 hours and I really want to be able to talk about Phantom Liberty this year. So I'm going to just dive right in on my end of the game save. I'm like standing right outside of that, like, this is your point of no return warning doorway. And so I'm just going to turn around and go do Phantom Liberty and see what that's all about.
Yep.
But I appreciate Final Fantasy getting a nod here. I think that it did some cool stuff with its story. I would be surprised if it wins.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This is a weird category. I think is another one Alan Wake could take it.
Yeah, I feel like this one comes down to Alan Wake, Baldur's Gate, or Phantom Liberty. Do you think Spider-Man has a shot here, or
no? I think that the narrative and the story was one of the weaker parts of Spider-Man 2, especially comparing it to its predecessors. Like, it's not a bad story.
Yeah.
but I think that it's my least favorite of those three.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was going to compare it to what I've heard about Alan Wake 2,
Yeah.
and then what I know from Final Fantasy 16 and
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3 just being like a D&D kind of choose your own adventure story. It's like, I mean, it's nice to see Spider-Man getting the nod, but I would be very surprised if it took this category.
Yeah. I feel like it's maybe even just Alan Wake and Phantom Liberty here. Because I think a lot of Baldur's Gate stuff is like just the emergent narrative that you come up with doing random stuff more than the main storyline. So
there's a cool through line, but I obviously am nowhere near seeing it pay off. But it is much more about like, how does that story look for you? The next category I pulled up was Best Independent Game.
Okay.
Which very much looks to be like, here's all the like cutesy, games, because they didn't put Baldur's Gate in this category, even though it is technically an independent game.
Yeah. There was also some controversy because they put Dave the Diver in this category, and I guess Mint Rocket is a studio owned by a big publishing. I forget who it is.
Yeah, it's either Tencent or Embracer Group, or like one of those big like companies that swallowed up a bunch of studios. So that is interesting that it's there.
Like it is made by a small studio, but it is not an independent studio, I think is what it was.
No, it's like an indie style game. But so we have Dave the Diver, we have Dredge, Cocoon, Sea of Stars, and Viewfinder. And honestly, I don't know. I heard a lot of good things about Dave the Diver. I heard a lot of good things about Dredge. I've heard a lot of good things about Sea of Stars, and I've played a good bit of that game and really enjoyed it. I heard Cocoon was pretty cool.
Yeah. Cocoon's one that I intend to play before the end of the year because I think it's only like 3 or 4 hours. Yeah. It's one of those where it's so short that I'm kind of like, ironically haven't done it yet because I'm like, I kind of just want to sit down on like a weekend and play it like completely through. And so
just play it all at once.
Yeah. And so I haven't had like the past few weeks, I haven't had the chance to just like feel like I have the time to sit down and just marathon it in a session or two. And so now I'm just like, I need to play that game. So, but I've heard really good things about Cocoon. Like you, I've heard good things about Dave the Diver. I wouldn't be shocked if this comes down to Cocoon and Sea of Stars, though. I feel like those are...
People really love Dredge early in the year, but it's one of those things of like...
It was so early that...
Yeah. Was it just because it was early and we hadn't played much yet? Or is it going to really hold up next to these other games? But yeah, I do think Sea of Stars has a good chance of taking this one.
Was Sea of Stars in other categories? Do you know?
To be honest, this is the first time I'm diving into categories beyond game of the year. So I don't know. Maybe
because it
wasn't in like narrative.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
there's an RPG category, right? It maybe could have been in there.
Yeah, because I feel like that's one that it is in there.
Okay,
and that is, we'll look at that one because I feel like we'll have some things to say about that one.
There, but
because I feel like Sea of Stars is one people are going to want to win something, and so maybe independent game is where it takes that win. So
yeah, it is kind of a darling. I hope it wins. I think it's a really, really good game. I haven't finished it, but I enjoyed my time with it. Next category I pulled up was Adventure, which is where we finally get a nod to Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Action adventure or just adventure?
Nope. Just adventure. We'll get to action adventure next.
I was going to say.
Because both of those categories exist for some reason.
Yeah. Trying to find adventure in the... Continue. Sorry.
Just straight adventure is Alan Wake 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And
interesting.
I think this is one of those categories where it's like, oh wow, it was really crazy how Zelda swept the Game Awards. Or this is one of those categories where Spider-Man or Jedi Survivor could get a nod because it's like, what else are they going to win?
Yeah, I would like to see Jedi Survivor win something, but
same.
But yeah, I don't know how that's gonna.
I mean, the competition is stiff, just like it is across pretty much all the Game Awards this year. Like pitting it against Spider-Man alone, I think is tough.
Yeah. And just like Spider-Man is one of those where it's like it's I can see it just not winning a single award again just because of the year. Like, when does Spider-Man 3 come out? That's what I want to know, because I want to be prepared for that year. Start saving my money now so that I can afford all of the great games that'll come out that year.
Blocking time off of work.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is an interesting one, because on the one hand it's like, oh, you know, action adventure game, it's like kind of a slough category.
Yeah,
but on the other hand, it's like there's a couple games in here that might get to have a win. You might get to see their team come up on stage. And I was wrong. I had it backwards. There's an action category.
Okay.
And an action adventure.
All right.
So this is action adventure. Next will be just action.
Yeah.
Which is like, could we maybe combine those?
Yeah. I feel like there needs to be some sort of different naming convention, because
at the very least,
like action adventure, it's like, well, how is that different? And this is a topic of conversation on every single podcast that I listen to that talks about the Game Awards, where they're like, what's the difference? And so now we've done it too. So we are a real podcast.
Yes. So there you go. Let us vote as actual like outlets.
Yes.
Keely, you coward.
Please.
Our two personalities shining through there. Please, you coward. So then we have Best Action Game, which I guess makes sense because these are all very much more
like just straight combat.
Feels like story is less important in these games. You have Armored Core 6, Dead Island 2, Ghost Runner 2, Hi-Fi Rush, and Remnant 2.
Yeah.
Which Remnant 2 is on that list of I want to play at some point.
Yeah. I feel like, this is a tough one, because obviously Armored Core 6 From Software game. And so it comes along with all of the quality of a From Software game. But Hi-Fi Rush, industry darling. Remnant 2, industry darling. I honestly don't think Dead Island 2 has a shot here. And Ghost Runner 2,
I haven't heard anything really about that.
I know Andy Cortez is a fan of Ghost Runner 2. And that is all that I know
people
about
really
it.
liked the first one, but like I feel like the second one just came and nobody talked about it.
Yeah. I remember seeing like a trailer or two for it, but I don't remember seeing any lead up to it really. Or hearing anybody talk about it. So yeah.
Yeah. I think this goes to Armored Core because I don't know what other categories.
Yeah, I was going to say this might be the only one it was nominated in.
Hi-Fi Rush, really big in like the kind of funny community, and then there's some other people in the industry that really like it. But I think Armored Core spreads like a wider net, and I think that Ghost Runner, Dead Island, and Remnant just aren't as big as those two. Like I don't think they have the pull. I think they would split the vote.
Yeah.
So let's end this one on
Best
RPG.
Yep.
Which, interesting category.
Right.
This is the first time I'm looking at the nominees here.
This is a category where it's like, I feel like Baldur's Gate 3 is probably going to win it because, man, people sure do love Baldur's Gate 3. But I would love if Baldur's Gate 3 was just universally like, we're giving you something else. So we're not voting for you in this category, and we're going to vote for one of these other small games. Because the other games are Final Fantasy 16, Lies of P, Sea of Stars, and Starfield, which I know are not small games, but like...
I was going to say, you say small games, and the next thing you mention is Final Fantasy 16.
So Final Fantasy 16 and Starfield are huge AAA games, but Sea of Stars is like an indie. Lies of P is also like an indie. I think it's their first game. So... And it's way better than it has any right to be.
It's like if you take RPG at face value, you can't role play more than you could role play in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
It is literally D&D, the game.
Yeah. If you compare these games just as games and had to pick one that you would want to win, then it's a little different. Because, I would love to see Lies of P get some recognition. I mean, it's really between that and Final Fantasy for me, just out of like my preferences. But I think it'd be really hard to beat Baldur's Gate 3 in this category.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it is the de facto RPG. And I feel like pretty much universally people have at least tried it out,
Except for you.
Well, yeah. The CRPG may not be for everybody, but...
No, but they were so smart about how they frame it and shoot, like, the cinematography of it and the way you interact with characters being much more like Witcher 3 or Dragon Age-esque. It's like, yeah, and you can zoom in pretty much to almost like a third-person action game when you're exploring. Like, it makes sense to zoom out during the combat. Like, it'd be basically impossible not to.
Yeah.
But for most of the rest of the game, if you want to play it like a third-person game, you kind of can. So giving it that option, I think, made it just seem more accessible to more people.
Well, and like,
when you get into it, it's still like, whoa, this game is deep.
Yeah. And I know that it had a semi-lengthy run-up to it as an early access game to its
couple
launch.
Of years, I think.
And so, like, when it came out and was as good as it was, people seemed to really love it. And it makes me wonder, if Starfield spent a year or two in early access and then launched and it's like, hey, now we're officially coming out. What would the narrative be there,
I think it's definitely something we may start to see a little bit more of in the next few years. Like 2 or 3 years down the road from now, you maybe start seeing more of these games in an early access state. Because it worked out. It works really well for Supergiant games, at least for Hades, and then which is smaller still. But like Baldur's Gate 3, it came out in early access. People really enjoyed what was there, and then other than that diehard community, I don't remember hearing like anything about it until it hit 1.0, and it was like, oh yeah, this game is amazing. But they've also been working on it, interacting with the players and community for the past 2 years, so they had that going for them. So yeah, it takes a special studio, though. I think them being an indie game is one of the reasons they're able to do. EA, I don't think, is going to just let you drop something in early access like that. No. They don't care.
Yeah, well, and they put it out and did, from my understanding, early access the way that we as the consumer would want it to be done, where it's like they were respectful about it. I don't know what they charged initially, but it was like, hey, we're putting this out, we're making constant updates, we're taking your feedback, we are not abandoning the game partway through its development like a lot of early access games do. We're not charging, like we're not putting in a paid like cosmetics store before early access is finished. A lot of things that I can't see many other games published by big studios doing. So
yeah, this is sort of related, but did you hear about Disney Dreamlight Valley is now not going to launch as a free-to-play game?
I did
it's going
to
launch as a paid game.
I did see that. Which, I mean, makes sense.
Pros and cons.
Yeah. I mean,
it sounds bad like when you first hear it, but it's like, well, free-to-play does come with a lot of BS usually.
Yeah, so it makes sense, but it's also like one of those where it's like, now all the people who were buying stuff in the store when it was supposed to be a free-to-play game are like, how dare they have free-to-play elements in my paid game? So yeah, we'll have to have Delaney and Aubrey back on at some point to give us the update on how they feel about it. So
exactly. Cool. Well, that was beefy.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and roll into our main topic here.
All right.
So, main topic. This is a good old-fashioned what we've been playing, which for me is a couple big games. I have thoughts on how I might want to do a Mario Wonder episode, but it won't be necessarily like our traditional content. So it might be like a bonus episode, or it might be something that I just mess around with because I played a lot of that game with my 5-year-old daughter. So I'm kicking around some ideas for that one. So there may be some more Mario Wonder content in your feed in the future, but for now, this will probably be one of the main places to get my thoughts on it. But I guess I can start there.
how is Mario Wonder? Is it not just the same 2D Mario game that's been coming out for the last 20 years? I know that's very reductionist and I'm being intentionally antagonistic. Comment section, I'm sorry. So
yeah, I mean, it's yes and no, because I think both from like a style, a stylistic angle, and also from gameplay, it is different. It's not like Breath of the Wild from the original Zelda formula different, but it is still just like a 2D Mario game. So within that framing, within that structure, they have gotten pretty creative and done some really kind of unique and fun things. Like, you know, typically you travel the world map and you go through the same, you know, zones. There's the desert, the water, whatever, and they're almost always in the exact same order. This one, some completely new kinds of zones, and the zones are not in that same order. At least the like last 2 or 3 I was able to tackle in any order I wanted. There wasn't like a linear way to go through them. The overworld is, you're not on like, well, I mean, it makes sense. You're not on a linear path like I was just talking about. You can kind of bounce around in this like little hub and pick the levels you want. And the levels give you a star rating, so you can kind of know what you're getting into difficulty-wise. The main differences come in the form of the Wonder Star, the Wonder Seed, Wonder Flower. There's a Wonder Seed you get at the end of the level, and then there's like a Wonder Flower that will trigger something in the level that just makes the level go completely nuts. And it's usually some sort of just fun gimmick thing. Sometimes it's a little bit more challenging. So it's just throwing all sorts of crazy things like that. The other thing that's different is there's not as many unique items as far as like your fire flowers, your raccoon suit, all that kind of stuff. What they do have is badges. It's a badge system. So you get these badges that are essentially abilities that you can equip one at a time, and you can take that with you into a level. So one that I kept on for a lot of our playthrough towards the end of the game will let you bounce out of a pit or out of lava or something once, you know. Or they have one that will let you like swing from a vine that can attach to walls, or you can jump and hover kind of like Yoshi does. And so you can take these into the levels, and that will either kind of remix how you approach the level or make it easier or allow you to find secrets. So those kind of things are like very new and different to the 2D Mario franchise. And outside of that, it's like they just have added a lot more animations and like kind of attitude is the wrong word, but like personality to the characters. So it's I think it is different in a lot of ways, but at its core, you're running from left to right. You're getting to the end, jumping on the flagpole. They took away the timer in the level, so you're not like
that's nice
rushing through on a timer. So at its core, yes, it's still a 2D Mario game, but within that structure, they did do a lot creatively to make it feel new and fresh.
Well, good.
Today, probably 2 hours or so, 3 hours before recording this, my daughter and I beat Bowser, and the Bowser fight at the end, fantastic. Amazing. It's really, really fun, the kind of gimmick that they have you do for that. So what I have left to play, she might help me with it or might be there for it, is like all the super hard levels. You know, they have, every Mario game has like the super secret, really hard levels. So those are left, going back and maybe 100%ing some of the levels and getting the things we missed. But we rolled credits today. And it does the Super Smash Brothers credits thing where like you can
play a little game,
run around and jump and play like a little game for the credits. And she's like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? What's happening? I'm like, well, these are credits, which normally are just like a black screen with words, but you haven't really had to deal with those very much. So it's like kind of hard to explain, but I think it's a really good game. Is it drastically different from the core formula? No, but I think that out of all the 2D Marios I've played, this one ranks pretty high for me.
Nice. If somebody was picking up a 2D Mario game, is this the one you'd recommend they pick up? Or would you recommend like a Mario Maker or one of the other slightly older ones?
I would definitely recommend this one, especially if you get Nintendo Switch Online or whatever, you get access to a lot of the older ones.
Yeah,
so you
true.
can just do that. But Mario Maker is cool. But if you don't have the drive to either play ridiculous challenge levels or build levels yourself, the kind of core Nintendo created content in that game is pretty light.
Yeah.
So, whereas this one is like Nintendo was they were just having a blast with their ideas and level design and stuff. So this is definitely the one I would recommend people get.
Nice.
So throw it to you, Nix. What you been playing?
Sure. I guess the first one that I will talk about is Wild Hearts, a game that did come out in the year 2023.
Yeah, didn't see it on too many categories.
No, it definitely, it's one that I feel like any other year probably would have
hit something
like action adventure, something like that. But for this year, I can definitely see why it did not. But this is the EA published like Koei Tecmo version of Monster Hunter.
Monster Hunter Fortnite.
Sort of. I'm not super far into the game because it just came to Game Pass like a little under a week ago. But I have gotten a chance to like mess around in the world, fight some of the monsters, and kind of start exploring. I'm still like figuring out some of the game's systems because it's, it does that thing where it slowly trickles out like new things that you can do. It is both what I thought it would be and not what I thought it would be. So like in the Monster Hunter games, you have like your central hub where you pick up quests and make armor and stuff. And then you go out into a specific location and hunt the monster there. And it's like, okay, you're going to the ancient forest and you're, going around in the ancient forest and hunting the monster and then coming back. This so far seems to be kind of open world to an extent, which I was not expecting. I expected it to be more of the like hub and then go to the location and back. They're dotted across the map are all of these like dragon springs or something. And so basically bonfires from Dark Souls. And so you can activate those and empower them. And the more that you empower them, the more stuff you can build around them. And so you can kind of create your own little hub where it's got, tents for you to rest. It's got a blacksmith spot. It's got like a tower that you can use to like locate monsters nearby. All this kind of stuff. So it's interesting in that way. And then while you're hunting the monsters, you can build stuff and I guess also build stuff to just explore the world. Like you can stack up little boxes so that you can reach higher areas or something like that.
Yeah.
And that stuff's like persistent unless it gets destroyed by a monster, which I didn't realize. So like when I load into my world, I can be like, hey, there's that stuff I built when I was fighting that one monster at the beginning of the game. And it's still there.
That's why it was next gen only.
Yeah. So, because I do find myself wondering, is this going to like tank performance later on in the game if I don't go through? That's why
it was struggling so bad on PC. I think like when it launched was just because of the
persistent
amount of stuff that could just persist.
But yeah, it's been interesting so far. I've only tried out 2 of the weapons. I only have access to 5 of them maybe, but there are a bunch of blocked off question mark ones that I assume I'll unlock as the game progresses. But you start with like just your standard longsword type of thing. And I also tried out the like little bladed umbrella thing. And I'm still trying to like piece together which, like it's obviously not Monster Hunter, but since that's my reference point, I'm trying to figure out like which of these, like which Monster Hunter weapon is this thing closest to, And so, because it does play a little bit quicker, I think, than most Monster Hunter games do. It plays more like because it's Koei Tecmo, so they're like Dynasty Warriors and stuff. It does play more like that, but it is still like a boss battler, so it's not as fast and ridiculous as like a Dynasty Warriors type of game, but it is still like more combo button pressy than a lot of the, like Monster Hunter, you can do some combos. This is more like spamming versus Monster Hunter, where it's more like the timing is a little bit different. So
I downloaded this game.
Interesting.
And because it hit Game Pass and it came out this year, and I was like, let me try it. I made a really cool character.
Yeah, I was going to say, that character creator seemed really in-depth, and I spent almost no time in it. So I can only imagine.
I spent some time in there, made this really cool hunter chick, and then started playing the game and doing some of the combat, and realizing that it plays kind of like Monster Hunter, with, as far as like, you're committing to your move when you press it, and you're like locked into the direction. Just kind of the thing that I think people either love or don't like about those games. And I ended up not playing it anymore. It's still installed.
Yeah.
But I want to throw a comparison at you and see if you agree with it.
Okay.
This is the Wo Long to Capcom's like Dark Souls, or
yes and no. Like, it's definitely yes, in that it's the sort of off-brand, like, unestablished attempt at it. But no, because I didn't think Wo Long was to me a much bigger departure from a Souls-like, which is what we were playing it as, versus this, which is to me much more of a it is a lot closer to Monster Hunter, I think, than Wo Long was to being like Sekiro, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Wo Long may be closer to Armored Core, potentially, because it's like going into missions and that sort of thing. But you've been playing Armored Core, so tell me.
I have.
Tell me about that and how it compares.
Wow, look at you. You sound like a real podcaster.
Right?
Armored Core. So I have rolled credits on Armored Core as well, but it is a game that wants you to do at least a few playthroughs. It has some deviating paths and missions and things, and it's very much about S-ranking these missions, going back, S-ranking them, finding a build that just allows you to do this mission, like peak speed performance with minimal ammo used and damage taken and stuff like that, which the Fighting Cowboys and Vatis of the world got like really into when it came out, because I've been going back and watching some of their videos and using some of their builds.
Yeah.
But yeah, Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, 100% not a Souls-like, so I will be looking forward to that when we revisit our predictions. But yeah, it's such a weird, it's like in some ways the most bare bones video game, but then in other ways, like just the amount, it's super nerdy if you want to tweak a mech. But if you want to ever see your character or the characters that are talking to your character, you're playing the wrong game.
Yeah.
Like the entire story is given to you through like comms. Every time you come back from a mission, you just are in like this giant garage where you see your mech and then you hear people talking to you in your headset and stuff. And so on that front, it's like feels kind of lacking, but it also kind of feels intentional.
Yeah.
And then in a weird way, it has a more digestible and direct story than any of the Souls type games. So it's like, it's weird that you don't actually ever see these characters. Like you see their mechs, but I did find myself kind of getting invested and making a choice towards the end where it was like, well, do I really want to screw over this character or this one? And I had to make that choice.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why I want you to play it multiple times, to kind of see those different outcomes. The gameplay though is where this game is just really super rad.
Yeah.
Like when I first started, the first kind of test boss they throw at you, you're playing in a AC that is not your own, that you can't really do anything with. It's mission 1.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I don't know about this game. And then as soon as I actually got to go in and kind of start changing things, I played probably a good half to 2/3 of the game with my own build, which was a build all around like dual submachine guns to just lay down ridiculous suppressive fire, and then as soon as I'd break the stagger of whatever I was fighting, I would launch my like heavy rockets and stuff to do massive damage.
Yeah.
And that worked really well. I mostly just looked up. Well, I didn't look up. I watched the Fighting Cowboy and Vati's like build videos and tried some of those just for some variation and just to try things and get some inspiration. But I feel like I probably could have finished the game with my build. So
that's good.
In that sense,
that's like,
not.
I mean, I guess semi-typical of a From Software game where theoretically you could just take whatever weapon you find and bring it to the end of the game. But also sometimes the way things scale in their games is weird. And so for you to be able to intuitively go in and make a build is cool. Like that was something I was worried about.
Yeah. And really, I think the game is more about, similar to a lot of FromSoft games, it's more about just learning the game. Because some of the stuff at the beginning that was just really wrecking me was because like you have a boost and then you have a dodge, and those are two separate things. And then you have 2 shoulder slots and 2 arms that you can equip weapons to. And then, you have certain legs that will allow you to jump and stay in the air longer. You have certain legs that, provide more strength. It's just a lot of learning the language and the stats and all that kind of stuff, similar to all the other FromSoft games. And then it's kind of optimizing like, okay, I can't be too heavy and I have this much energy left, so I can equip this heavier gun. Does this heavier gun actually benefit this build when everything else I'm doing is trying to be real quick and zippy? And so it's a lot of just like, what do I want to do with this build and what's going to like optimize that path for me? And then it's just wrapped up in this really cool, like post-apocalyptic mech, like the mechiest of mech games. I will say, because you're always in the mech and you're kind of zoomed out and you're not ever like in Titanfall jumping out of your mech or fighting alongside mechs or whatever, it's like buildings don't feel real, structures don't feel real. It kind of feels like you're playing in these dioramas. Like the levels are cool looking and I think that they did a good job with like the art direction and stuff like that, but nothing feels real.
Like you don't get a good scale of what's
there's
going
no
on.
Perspective. Like there's no good perspective or scale. And like anytime you interact with any other character, they're also a mech. And so it's like, you see buildings and maybe some cars and stuff, and you like walk into a car and kick it halfway across the map. And so it's like
watching a Godzilla movie or something though, where it's like,
exactly.
Okay, this is, a man in a rubber suit in a scale model of Tokyo,
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed Armored Core probably a little bit more than I was expecting.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where it lands on my list because I haven't really finalized like my thoughts on that as far as Game of the Year.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to see where I would rank it amongst the other From Software games that I've played.
True.
But I bought it kind of on a whim because a lot of the other games I was playing, I couldn't play till the kids went to bed. And I was like, well, this game, it's like violent and stuff, but it's robots fighting.
Yeah.
So I can play this anytime, which is also why I beat it so quickly because I was like, I can just play this game.
Yeah.
And so having the time to actually kind of sit and sink into it, I think allowed me to kind of get nerdy for it. And I think once you play it, if the world and the gameplay clicks for you, like the action moment to moment gameplay, I think you would really enjoy the going back and optimizing and customizing, because it does kind of have that Monster Hunter flavor of, okay, I just went and killed this boss, did this mission. Now I have X amount of money that I can spend to now get that gun I've been eyeing and test it out and see what's going on. And if it was worth it. The cool thing about the shop is you buy gear and equipment and stuff, and then if you sell it back, you get what you paid for.
Oh, nice.
So you can basically just be like, this isn't working out. I'll sell it back, get the money, and then try buying something else. So it does allow you to kind of,
it's like
once you unlock things, to just do whatever you want.
Like basically the respec is you get, it's a free respec basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then eventually you'll make enough money either by replaying missions or new game plusing or whatever that you just have everything and don't have to go through that step. But that step is really only there in name only. It's like, oh, I bought these like shotguns because I thought it might be kind of cool, but they're not really working for my build. I'll sell them back and try this shoulder cannon thing. And so it is pretty cool that the game, there's not a lot of penalty in this game for anything, which is one of the like not Souls things about it. Like you fail a mission or fail a boss fight, it just checkpoints you right where you were before you respawn back in, gives you all your health, everything back, all your heals. And then it's in the menu before you go back into the fight. You can go tweak your AC. You can go try a completely different build you've saved, like whatever. They don't care. They're like, hey, try something else. This boss, you really need to float up above it and shoot at its weak point from the top. Your AC you've been driving around doesn't do that very well. So maybe play around with some of those things. Yeah. And that's kind of the whole game is designed to make you go tweak your build. And that's that's the loop.
Yeah. Well, and I like that they didn't try to hide that behind a bunch of complications and like punish you for doing the thing that you want to do, because it's like, there's definitely, like you said, that thing in Souls games where it's like, once you start investing into a weapon, sometimes it can be hard to deviate from that, because at the very least, like, you'd have to maybe, like, if you want to swap from a dex build to a strength build, you got to respec, and you also have to put, like, level up a weapon to like level 15 and hope that you like it, because there are only so many like maximum upgrade shards that you get every run through or whatever. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. Other than learning the language of the game, like, okay, what is EN and what is like firearm proficiency do versus this? And what is this load versus, like, other than learning all the like nerdy system stuff, it's a very player friendly kind of easy breezy experience.
Nice.
That's not to say that I didn't beat my head against a few bosses. Like the final boss was probably one of the more difficult fights.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I think I did it like 6 or 7 times.
I was going to say, did you spend longer on the final boss of Armored Core or the final boss of Lies of P?
Oh yeah, for sure Lies of P, for sure Elden Ring, for sure. Like it was actually one of probably like 2 or 3 like checks in Armored Core where I didn't one-shot it. There are a lot of bosses and big events and stuff that was like, oh, I just did that. I have some clips and stuff that I'll probably dole out on social media over time, because it's just so cool. Like you're blasting this thing, you're dodging, zipping around, whatever. You get the final like killing blow that drops its health to 0, and then the game goes into like slow motion as it explodes and dies, and you kind of like spin around on your rockets and like land. And it's like, God, that just looks so awesome. That is the selling point of this game. Yeah. And so I think, if you pick it up on a sale, or if it ever makes it to Game Pass or whatever, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. For sure. It's one, like we've talked about, that I have every intention of picking up and playing at some point. It's just one that I'm also like, I don't know that I'm going to enjoy it enough to buy it at full price.
Right. So yeah, 100%. You got a few more things on your list.
Yeah.
So maybe pick the ones that sound the most interesting to you and bring us home on this thing.
Sure. I will shout out a few quick ones. I've been playing the Dead Space remake. I played the original Dead Space last year. Holds up really well, to the point where I'm like, yeah, the remake is pretty similar to not in a bad way, but it's like, because they've gone through and they've up-resed it, and it's got the 60 frames per second mode or whatever. Like it feels like you're playing a game newer than, I guess, whenever it released back in like 2010, 2011. Like the Dead Space is older than you would expect it to be based on the gameplay. And so the remake is really good. They've added a few little things. They've remixed a couple of little parts that I've gotten to so far. I'm only a couple of chapters in. I intend to try to play through all of it because I do really like Dead Space, but it is it's been cool. Check it out if you're into like the Dead Space stuff.
Another recent Game Pass edition.
Yes. I also started up Days Gone based on our previous episode where we talked about games that didn't review particularly well, but that we loved. As you were talking about it, I was like, that sounds really cool. I want to check it out. And so it is pretty cool. I am not super far into the game. My initial thoughts are it seems interesting. I'm still getting a hang of the shooting. I'm still getting a hang of the crafting mechanics and what I can reasonably take on and what I can't, and just figuring out, like, exploring the map and just trying to stick to some of the quests. It is very weird. This may be the first game that I've played on PlayStation that utilized the, like, speaker in the controller.
Oh, the speaker.
Like, I picked up an audio log and it started shouting at me, and I was like, "What is it? Where is this coming from? What's going on here?" Because, like, I was playing, I didn't have the volume super high up on my TV, and then all of a sudden it's like, bam, there's this noise coming from where. So that was weird. And the touchpad, I'm like, I hate this. I do not like swiping around to get to the map and stuff. I'm just like, can you not? Can you just let me press a button? But
you know, The Witcher on PlayStation did that. Like, you would swipe to go to different, like, you could still press it and then manually, but it would, like, if you swiped, it would auto take you to map or auto take you to character or whatever.
Yeah. Which, I mean, like, is fine, but it, like, half the time where I'd be, like, trying to swipe around, I would, like, which direction am I supposed to go here? I don't, like, just take me to map automatically and let me hit the right bumper to get to wherever I need to get to, you know?
The game was, like, in development when, like, before I think the PlayStation 4 came out, or early in the PlayStation's life, where it was like, hey, be sure you use these cool features we have. And now it's like, I mean, some games still use them, like even Spider-Man 2 had, like, a couple little swipes for things, but it's such a weird gimmick.
Yeah, there were some very odd choices in it, and I was just like, this is bizarre. But I wanted to shout that one out. And then I guess the other big one that I've been playing is Warcraft Rumble, which is on it's a mobile game. So
yeah, Joe told me to download it at our, like, Friendsgiving thing, and I did, and I played, like, kind of the tutorial, but I couldn't really hear it very well, and, you know, we're all drinking and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know yet, and I haven't gone back since I've, you know, been playing Marvel Snap, but he claims that it scratches a similar itch.
Yeah. I mean, it is an interesting game. I don't know that I will stick with it like I stuck with Marvel Snap personally, but also I am much bigger into, like, card games than I am. Like, it's Warcraft Rumble is essentially, I think, just Clash of Clans, but, like, the Warcraft version of it. I've not really played a ton of Clash of Clans. There's, like, a Godzilla game that functions very similarly to Warcraft Rumble. So that's what I am familiar with.
Of course.
Yeah. So, but you go in with your, like, team of, like, 6 units, your leader, and then, like, you have a little kobold miner that doesn't attack or anything. It just mines gold, which is, and you've got kind of a continuously filling, like, power meter. And then every little unit that you play costs a certain amount of that power. And it functions kind of like the rock, paper, scissors, you know, melee things are good against, like, you've got melee units, like tanky units, you've got, like, archers and stuff, you've got distractions that, you know, can be, like, have a lot of health but don't really do a whole lot of damage. You've got all of these different types of units, and it's mostly, like, just you fighting, like, AI, like going through levels and fighting these, like, different AI on a map. Most maps have 2 or 3 different, like, little lanes that you can send your dudes up and capture little towers and stuff on the way so that you can spawn things closer to the enemy base. And the ultimate goal is to, like, take out the end of the enemy's lane. And so it's been interesting. It's been fun. I haven't been playing it, like, for long because I don't know when it came out. Maybe it came out, like, during BlizzCon or whatever a couple weeks ago. But it's been interesting. Like, I've the past, like, month or two, I've kind of fallen off of Marvel Snap, and so this is kind of my new go-to phone game right now. But I don't know that I will stick with it as long term as like Marvel Snap, because Marvel Snap was basically like almost a year that I played it. I know you're still going strong on the Snap game.
I don't know about strong. I'm definitely way more casual than I have been the last few months, but yeah, I am still playing it consistently.
Yeah, like I don't know that I booted it up in maybe a month. And so
crazy.
I know. But also like realistically, I don't know that I'll stick with this or if I'll just swap back to playing Magic the Gathering on my phone instead. But it's been fun. I've been enjoying it. It is a cool little, like the progression feels good. I've kind of hit the point where the progression has slowed down a little bit and it kind of wants you to farm some quests, or you can pay like gold to level your units up a little bit, and you can buy the gold with real money if you need to.
Yeah.
And so I have not been doing that because I refuse. But if it continues to just get unbearably slow, I can see myself falling off of the game pretty quick. But if, it hits that point where it's like, okay, no, I'm kind of back on a roll here. I can see that being a fun thing. I haven't unlocked dungeons or whatever. I don't know what those are. I'm like a point away from unlocking the dungeons, which seems to be kind of like an interesting mechanic from what I can tell. There is a PvP mode. I have not really done a whole lot with that mode yet, but it seems cool. It's, a little back and forth there. So if you're into mobile games, definitely check it out. If you're into World of Warcraft, that's what got me into it, is like, oh, I like Warcraft, so let me check this out. It has that cool little aesthetic. But if you're not a big mobile gamer, I don't know that I would say rush out and download this on your phone. So
nice. Yeah, I honestly had kind of forgotten that I downloaded it until you brought it up, so I may dive into it and play a little bit more and see how it is. But yeah, the Marvel Snap is just such a such a recipe for success as far as like the property, the quick hit, the games, like it works so well that I'm like, I don't really need anything else right now. I'm not like a big phone gamer, but I did enjoy WoW, so I may give it a little bit more of a shot since it's free. Why not?
Yeah,
but
yeah, I mean, like, worst you lose out on is the time it takes to download it. So
yeah, and I already did that. So nice, cool. Well, that pretty much does it for this episode of the Neighborhood Watch. What do we have for housekeeping? Let's see. As far as the podcast goes, put out the call, rate, review, all that good stuff. If you enjoy this show, let us know on Apple Podcasts or our website, or Spotify has like a rating system. All those things help us get into those algorithms for discoverability that we can't control outside of just asking you to help us out. So help us out, please. Follow us on social media if you would like, but the main place that we would recommend you go if you want to chat with us, hang out with us, be part of the community is our Discord server. There's a link in every podcast description. Like I referenced earlier, when the Game Awards happen, we're going to have a channel in there where we're all just geeking out and enjoying the show together. So that was a real fun time last year. Aubrey won a Steam Deck, which was crazy.
That was awesome.
So
what will they give out this year?
Yeah. How will they boost their numbers this year?
Steam Decks.
But yeah, I mean, if they do, I'll go for it. I guess I need to play a game on Steam so that I can be eligible. That was my problem last year, was I hadn't played a game on Steam in the year requirement that they had.
Whoops.
But yeah, so Discord, that's where we're at. That's a good place to come hang out with us.
Just download Marvel Snap on Steam.
Oh, I have played that. That counts. Cool. I'm eligible this year. Nice. So yeah, what about YouTube, Dylan? What's going on over there?
YouTube is slowly trucking along, and so we've got this past week, I guess 2 weeks ago, roughly, when you're probably listening to this, we had a video come out that was, if you're playing Destiny 2 and you want to start getting into some of the harder content, I made a little guide about getting into the dungeons. So if you want to check that out, if you play Destiny 2, check that out, I guess. The other videos that have been blowing up lately have been the Diablo 3 video. Has been getting a lot of traction. The Hitman video, surprisingly, has been getting a lot of traction. And then, obviously, the Assassin's Creed video, where Andrew ranks all of the different Assassin's Creeds, has continued to do well. So if you want to check out some interesting videos, if any of those sound interesting to you, go check those out. We've got a lot of stuff. We've got, almost 2 years worth of content on there. So if you like what we do here but want shorter versions of some of it, maybe check out our YouTube channel.
Yeah, more like bite-sized scripted kind of produced content as opposed to the more meandering conversation that we have here.
If you scroll way back, you can get some more of the meandering conversation, though.
Yeah, we do have some of that on there, and we also like some really old like stream highlights and stuff like that if you want to go way back. So
yeah, if you blow those up somehow and leave a bunch of comments, maybe we will come back for a stream or two. Who knows?
Yeah,
probably not.
Wrapping up school, carving out some free time.
Yeah.
If we ever did stream again, I think it would be like a special occasion, either like when Elden Ring came out, we just we're playing it constantly. Well, we might as well stream for a little bit, or maybe if we wanted to get into like doing some of the charity streams and stuff, I could see doing it for that. But it would most likely not be a consistent thing unless we like brought on a streamer to be part of our team.
Yeah, yeah, which
is not in the plan currently.
No, that is not what we are about. So.
But let's see. I guess the other things is like the podcast is coming up on 100 episodes. We're also coming up on end of the year content. So there's a lot of fun stuff, I think, around the corner. And maybe coming into the new year, we're going to do, we always do kind of like a yearly check-in with each other just to kind of see where we're at, what we want to do, what we want to tweak going forward. So coming up on year 3 of the content.
Like going into year 3. Yeah.
Which is insane. We may be tweaking some things, shaking things up, trying to make the best content for you out there. So another reason to join our Discord is if there's anything that you enjoy and want to hear / see more of, or if you have any suggestions for us, let us know. We're open to all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
As far as the Neighborhood Watch, that will do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next one. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Friendly Neighborhood Gamers podcast. If so, we would greatly appreciate your help in growing the show and the community by giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any other podcasting app that allows it.
We also have some great videos on our YouTube channel, including reviews, rankings, and other topics. We would really appreciate you checking it out. And if you want to keep up with everything going on in the neighborhood, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and feel free to jump in our Discord server.
We hope to see you there. Links for everything are in the podcast description. Thanks again for listening, and remember,
stay friendly, gamers.